what if the cost of bread could topple a kingdom?
Whoa.
Imagine like a world where just the price of bread could actually start a riot.
Yeah.
Or where finding a gold mine, just one single vein, could totally like destabilize a whole kingdom.
Hmm.
Or even like how a dragon's hoard, more than just treasure, could really shake up the balance of trade. I
Yeah.
mean, how would you even handle an economy where magic and money just clash so much?
I mean, it's such a cool thought, right? And it makes me think about this D&D game I ran a while back.
Oh, yeah.
And my players, they just finished this huge quest. They're loaded with loot, and they're like, let's buy a tavern. Right.
Classic.
But they didn't think about, like, the rest of the town. They ended up kind of making a monopoly on rooms and ale, which really ticked off the other smaller inns.
Oh, no.
Prices went through the roof, and the town guard started watching them like, hold on, what's going on with these guys?
That's wild.
Yeah, and it made them really think about, like, the ripple effects of their choices, way more than just finding more gold ever.
I love that. And that actually leads perfectly into what we're diving into today, creating really believable, exciting economies for fantasy RPGs.
Nice.
We're going to be using some super cool ideas from LitRPG Reads to go beyond just saying, this sword costs 10 gold, and build a whole living economy that changes with the players and the world.
That's the dream, right?
Totally. We want to give you the tools to make economies that are immersive and complex, add another dimension to your games.
I like it.
So we'll be covering the basics of how these economies work, how to design one that actually changes and grows, the wild ways player actions can affect things.
Oh, yeah, that's the best part.
Totally, and how to manage that living economy, and then finally the whole connection between trade and politics.
I'm excited.
Me too. So let's start with the foundation, the absolute basics of fantasy economies.
Okay, so just like LitRPG Reads talks about, whether it's a magical world or not, everything comes down to supply and demand.
Right.
Like if something's rare, it's going to be worth more.
Makes sense.
And if there's tons of it, the price drops. Exactly. Like say someone finds a new vein of some precious metal. Suddenly there's more of that metal, so it might become cheaper.
Yeah.
But then the tools to mine it, they become more valuable because everyone needs them.
Interesting.
And now on top of that, the LitRPG Reads article lays out these different types of economic systems you might find.
Okay.
And it's not like they're totally separate. You could have a world with different systems in different regions, but it's a great starting point, right?
Yeah. What are they?
So you've got subsistence economies where people mostly take care of themselves.
Okay.
Then you have mercantile empires, all about trade and taxes paid with coins.
Got it.
Feudal systems where land and crops are everything.
Mm-hmm.
And even hints of capitalist economies where it's all about businesses and getting rich.
Wow, so many options.
Right, like think about a subsistence economy.
Okay.
These are isolated villages, maybe trading happens once in a blue moon, and wealth is like how many cows you have or how much grain you've stored.
That makes sense.
Taxes could even be part of your harvest or some work you do for the local leader.
Interesting.
And get this, even in these basic setups, you might have guilds controlling stuff like blacksmithing.
Oh, like limiting who can do what?
Exactly. They decide how many blacksmiths there are, which affects how much stuff costs and how easy it is to get.
Even in a simple village, there's complex economics.
Totally. Now flip that. Think of a mercantile empire.
Okay.
Bustling port cities, huge ships everywhere, roads connecting everything.
I can picture it.
It's all about trade, coins and king, and you've got guilds and nobles running the show.
Powerful folks.
Oh yeah. They control the trade routes, decide what's allowed in, maybe even have monopolies on certain goods.
And probably use that to influence politics, too.
You got it. Economics and power, always connected.
For sure. So what about those feudal systems?
Ah, feudalism. It's all about land, who owns it, and what they can grow.
The classic medieval setup.
Exactly. Your power, your wealth, it's all tied to how much land you control and the people working it.
Food is definitely wealth there.
Absolutely. But when towns and cities start popping up within a feudal system, things get interesting.
How so?
These towns, they become centers for trade and skilled crafts, right?
Makes sense. All those people need stuff.
So you get a merchant class, people who aren't nobles, but they're getting rich and influential.
And that could challenge the nobles, who are all about land.
You got it. It could lead to tension, maybe even change how society works.
Wow, economics shaking up the social order.
Exactly. And then there's the idea of capitalism in a fantasy setting.
That sounds almost anachronistic.
Right. But LitRPG Read makes a good point. What if guilds become like corporations?
Oh, I see. Like big, powerful companies.
Exactly. And nobles, they become tycoons, owning mines, factories, that kind of thing.
So it's like our world, but with magic and monsters.
Exactly. It leads to invention, people getting super rich, but also inequality and fierce competition.
So lots of story potential there.
Tons. The point is, which system or mix of systems you use really depends on the world you're building and the stories you want to tell.
It's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly, like a harsh mountain region, maybe that's perfect for a basic subsistence economy.
Makes sense. Hard to trade when it's all peaks and valleys.
But a fertile river valley, that's prime real estate for a booming mercantile society.
And then the forms of currency can be so much more than just gold and silver, right?
Oh, absolutely. LitRPG Reads goes deep on this, and it's so cool.
What are some examples?
Well, you've got barter, still common in less developed areas.
Trading goods directly, classic.
Then there's promissory notes, basically IOUs.
So like early forms of loans.
Exactly. And then you have the really wild stuff like arcane currencies,
Ooh, like what?
soul contracts. Imagine a currency tied to your very being.
Whoa, that's intense. What are the ethics of that?
Right. That's a whole discussion. But it shows how different cultures could have radically different ideas of value.
So cool.
Like nomads trading livestock for tools. That's barter.
Makes sense. Practical for people on the move.
But a society obsessed with magic, they might literally use soul contracts with strict rules and rituals.
That's a whole other level of economic complexity.
And LitRPG Reads has so many more examples. Electrum coins, maybe good for channeling magic.
Interesting.
Dragon scales, super rare and valuable. Favor-based exchanges, where you owe someone a debt.
Ooh, like a web of obligations.
And magically infused gems, powerful, but maybe unstable.
like they could explode or something.
Who knows? Each one tells a story about the culture using it.
I love that.
And don't forget the more creative stuff, like spell scrolls as currency in a world full of magic users.
Oh, that's clever. Like knowledge is literally power.
Exactly. Or even simple things made special, like shell beads for coastal communities.
I like that, taking something mundane and giving it value.
Or gem-capped wands for certain magic groups, each one unique.
There's so much potential to make different regions feel distinct.
For sure. And it gives your players unique challenges, like how do you get dragon scales if you need them?
That's a quest hook right there. But we can't forget about the elephant in the room, or maybe the dragon in the vault.
Oh, you mean magic.
Exactly. It's not just about cool spells and fighting monsters.
Right.
It has a huge impact on the economy, and LitRPG Reads goes into that in detail.
Yeah, like, think about it. Spellcasting is basically a service.
True.
It can compete with normal jobs, and enchanted items, they change the whole supply and demand game.
So many possibilities.
Like, what if you could teleport stuff anywhere instantly?
Oh, that would disrupt shipping completely.
Totally. Shipping costs plummet, prices even out across the world, but all those caravan businesses, they're out of luck.
Wow, that's a huge social and economic shift.
Right. And then there's conjuration, but if you could just make food and water appear.
That would totally undermine farmers and well diggers.
Right. Suddenly their livelihoods are in danger because magic's doing their job for free.
Like technology replacing jobs in our world.
Exactly. And then there's alchemy, being able to transmute materials or brew powerful potions.
Oh yeah, that would mess with apothecaries and miners.
Big time. Why mine ore when you can transmute it? Why buy herbs when you can make a potion?
Alchemy would be a huge economic force.
Absolutely. On the flip side, enchanting makes items way more valuable.
True, a +1 sword is worth way more than a regular one.
So you create this luxury market, only the rich can afford enchanted stuff.
And that widens the gap between rich and poor.
Exactly. But there are subtler effects too, like elemental magic could make harvests super predictable.
Oh, that would stabilize food prices.
Right. No more famine because of bad season, but divination magic. That could lead to insider trading.
Oh, like people seeing the future and using that to get rich.
Exactly. But then illusions could make people distrust trade, right?
Like, how do you know what's real if illusions are everywhere?
Exactly. And then there's necromancy, the spooky one.
Yeah, what happens when undead can work for free?
That could cause mass unemployment. No wages, no breaks, just tireless undead workers.
Talk about a labor dispute.
Right. And transmutation could mess with mining. Summoning could bring in cheap labor.
Wow, so much to consider.
It's crazy, right? That's why LitRPG Reads stresses that DMs need to think carefully about magic's impact.
Yeah, if magic solves every problem, it kind of breaks the economy.
Totally. It takes away the challenge and makes things less interesting for players.
So it's about finding that balance. Magic is cool, but it can't be a get-out-of-jail-free card for every economic problem.
Exactly. Which takes us to building a dynamic economy.
Right, we want a world that feels alive, not just static numbers on a sheet.
Exactly. It should react to everything that happens, especially what the players do.
So how do we make that happen?
Well, think about how big events would affect the economy, like a king getting assassinated.
Oh, wow, yeah, that would cause chaos.
Right. Or a huge trade deal between kingdoms.
New markets opening up, tons of money flowing.
Exactly. But political instability could lead to tariffs, embargoes, just uncertainty all around.
And natural disasters would be devastating.
Oh, absolutely. Earthquakes, droughts, they cause shortages, prices skyrocket.
Makes sense. Less stuff to go around, higher demand.
And people struggling to rebuild, that changes the whole economy.
And we can't forget about monsters.
Oh yeah, monsters raiding caravans, destroying crops, that has a huge impact.
Makes sense. Less trade, less food, bad news all around.
And LitRPG Reads highlights how supply, demand, and regional trade are all connected.
Give me an example.
Okay, imagine a kingdom famous for its silk, but they can't grow spices.
Okay, so they need to trade for them.
Exactly. They have a high demand for spices, so they trade their silk for them.
Makes sense.
But then war breaks out, disrupts the trade routes.
Oh no, no more spice imports.
Spice prices goes through the roof. Everyone's affected, rich nobles, common folks, everybody.
That creates opportunities for smugglers, right?
Totally. Risky, but potentially very lucrative.
And the article gives all these examples of trade goods and where they come from.
Yeah, like silk from Eastern Kingdom for fancy clothes.
Okay.
Iron from mountain strongholds for weapons and tools.
Essential stuff.
Rare herbs from enchanted forests, perfect for potions and healing.
Makes sense those would be in high demand.
Spices from far-off empires, adding flavor to everything.
And furs from the frozen north, keeping people warm.
Exactly, and it all shows how interconnected the world is. Disrupting one thing affects everything else.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly. Like imagine the waterway of echoes, a major trade route for fancy glassware.
Okay.
Now a war breaks out along that route.
Oh no, suddenly no more glassware shipments.
Prices skyrocket, but it also hurts the regions trading other goods for that glassware.
So everyone loses out.
It shows how fragile these systems can be.
And then there's the issue of economic inequality.
Oh yeah, that's a big one, the gap between rich and poor.
It's not just about money, it shapes the whole world.
Exactly. LitRPG Reads talks about how it can create amazing storylines.
Like what?
Corrupt nobles hoarding wealth, slums full of desperate people, famine driving up food prices.
Those are all classic fantasy tropes, but they're rooted in economics.
Exactly. And they can lead to awesome quests, players stopping riots, distributing food, or investigating the root of the problem.
So many possibilities.
Like, what if rich merchants hire tons of mercenaries to protect their caravans?
Oh, that just makes them more powerful and intimidating.
Exactly. And poor people, they might turn to banditry out of desperation.
Sad, but understandable.
Famine could lead to coaching, people getting evicted, selling family heirlooms just to survive.
Those are tough choices.
And in extreme cases, you might see slavery or even like underground entertainment just for the rich.
That's dark, but it shows the consequences of extreme inequality.
And we also need to talk about banking and debt.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other system.
LitRPG Reads points out that banks and moneylenders are essential.
They provide loans, help people invest, right?
Exactly. But they also bring interest rates and the risk of defaulting.
Which can ruin people's lives.
Absolutely. And it can even affect whole communities.
Like if a town defaults on a huge loan.
Exactly. And the article gives some fun examples of fantasy financial institutions.
Like what?
The classic royal bank, shady moneylenders, the super secure dwarven vault, the mysterious elven treasury.
Each one sounds so different.
And they all come with different risks and rewards, right?
For sure. And then you have the more unconventional ones.
Oh yeah, beef gold loans, maybe with some persuasion involved.
Or even a temple fundraiser where you're investing in good deeds.
And then there's the ultimate lender, the dragon's hoard.
Oh wow. Unimaginable wealth, but probably with some serious strings attached.
You got it. Borrowing from a dragon, that's a high-stakes game.
But we also need to think about the adventurers themselves. They can really shake things up.
Oh, for sure. They come back from the quest loaded with gold, and suddenly the local economy goes haywire.
Like they cause inflation just by spending their loot.
Exactly. Too much money chasing too few goods, prices go up for everyone.
So how do we manage that?
LitRPG Reads has some ideas like taxes on luxury items to redistribute some of that wealth.
Makes sense. Tax the rich to help everyone else.
And encourage players to invest their money, buy property, start businesses.
So instead of hoarding gold, they're putting it back into the world.
Exactly. It creates a more stable economy and gives players something to do with their riches.
Because let's be honest, after a while, another pile of gold isn't that exciting.
And the article gives tons of examples for how players can manage their wealth.
Like what?
Buy land, fund research, become patrons of the arts, even get scammed, it happens.
Oh yeah, there's always someone trying to take advantage.
And then there's commissioning art, donating to temples, sponsoring events, financing expeditions, rewarding followers.
Wow, so many options.
Acquiring artifacts, collecting rare pets, hiring mercenaries, even using their wealth in rituals. It all has an economic impact.
It makes the players feel like they're really part of the world.
Totally. And then we have to talk about guilds and merchant factions.
Those are the big players, right?
Oh yeah, they control the flow of goods, they have money, and often political clout.
So they can be allies or enemies, depending on how the players treat them.
Exactly. Their pursuit of profit can lead to monopolies, controlling prices, and squeezing out competition.
And that can lead to conflict, right?
Totally. Maybe a rival faction emerges, or smugglers try to bypass the guild's control.
Sounds like quest potential right there.
Absolutely. And LitRPG Reads gives a bunch of examples of these guilds, each with their own specialty and power.
Like what?
You've got the Merchants Guild, the Classic Traders, the Blacksmiths Guild, essential for weapons and armor.
Every adventurer needs a good blacksmith.
Then there's the Healers Alliance, providing medical care, the Thieves Consortium, operating in the shadows.
Always a fun group to deal with.
Then you have the Masons Collective, building everything, the Mages Circle, controlling magic.
A powerful bunch.
The Artisans Union, crafting all sorts of goods, the Navigators League, charting the seas and rivers.
Essential for trade and exploration.
The Builders Association, constructing houses and structures. The Miners Guild, extracting valuable resources.
The backbone of many economies.
And then there's the overarching Merchants Union, the nature-focused Green Cloak Society, and the Specialized Wandrites Accord.
Each one with its own role to play.
Exactly. And they all interact with each other, creating a complex web of economic relationships.
So you've got these guilds and factions, but then there's also the black market.
Ah, yes, the underbelly of the economy, but RPG Reads doesn't shy away from that.
What kind of stuff can you find there?
Oh, all sorts of shady things. Cursed artifacts, assassins for hire, illegal magic components, poached creatures,
Sounds dangerous.
stolen scrolls, rare poisons, forged documents, stolen art, forbidden relics, black market medicine, you name it.
Wow, it's a whole hidden world.
And there are bribed officials, counterfeit money, illegal gambling, smuggled books, anything goes.
It's risky, but you can find things you'd never get legitimately.
Exactly. But dealing with criminals always comes with a price.
And if you get caught, the consequences can be severe.
Totally. It adds another layer of moral complexity for players.
Do they risk it for a powerful artifact, or do they stick to the straight and narrow?
That's a great dilemma. And all these pieces come together to create that living economy we talked about.
It's not just a static system, it changes and adapts.
Exactly. It needs to feel like it's breathing, reacting to events.
So how do we keep track of all that?
Well, you don't need to be an economist, but you do need to pay attention to how things shift.
Like how a local event can have global repercussions.
Exactly. LitRPG Reads has this cool table of events and their effects. It's a great starting point.
What are some examples?
Well, a dragon attack could disrupt trade routes, increase security costs.
Makes sense. People are scared to travel for dragons on the loose.
A kingdom war could cause shortages, drive up demand for weapons and armor.
Classic wartime economy.
A resource boom somewhere could lower prices for that resource, but increase demand for other things.
Like tools to mine or process the resource.
Exactly. And then you have earthquakes, monster attacks, market crashes, even a sudden surplus of some rare magical item.
It shows how even small things can have ripple effects.
And then there's the less dramatic stuff, like a scandal in the royal family affecting trade.
Oh yeah, that could damage the kingdom's reputation.
Or a plague wiping out a bunch of workers.
Suddenly there's a labor shortage, everything gets delayed.
All these things can be woven into the story, giving players opportunities to shape the world.
They're not just reacting to the economy, they're influencing it.
Exactly. They can become real economic powerhouses.
What are some ways they could do that?
Well, they could invest in ships to create new trade routes, fortify outposts to make trade safer.
Okay, that's practical.
They could even manipulate the market, hoard a resource to drive up the price.
Ooh, that's getting sneaky.
They could buy shares in a powerful guild, negotiate trade deals between kingdoms.
Becoming economic diplomats.
They could clear out bandits plaguing trade routes, improve farming techniques to boost yields.
So many possibilities.
They could uncover and expose market manipulation schemes, build enchanted workshops,
Adding magic to the mix.
fund magic schools, broker peace treaties, support promising research projects,
Wow, they could really leave their mark on the world.
outsmart criminal organizations, discover new resources, offer protection to merchants,
It's like they're building an economic empire.
and even engage in price speculation, betting on future events.
So many options for players to get involved.
And if you're a DM feeling overwhelmed, LitRPG Reads mentions a bunch of tools and systems.
Oh, like to help manage all this?
Exactly. There are spreadsheets, homebrew rules, online price generators, even apps specifically for economies.
That's cool.
There are D&D supplements about economics, scripts to automate price tracking, online forums where DMs share ideas,
So many resources.
online map generators for visualizing trade routes, programs to balance the economy, tools for managing NPC finances, you name it.
It's a whole ecosystem of economic management.
But the key takeaway, you don't need to be an expert. Just make it believable and responsive to players.
Exactly. It's about adding depth and consequence, not becoming an accountant.
The players should be able to interact with the economy in meaningful ways, feel like their choices matter.
And that brings us to the last piece, the connection between trade and politics.
Ah, yes, the grand stage where economics and power collide.
So how does that play out in a fantasy world?
Well, think about trade routes. They're not just lines on a map.
They're lifelines, connecting regions, facilitating the flow of goods and ideas.
Exactly. They can make or break kingdoms, and they often influence political alliances.
Like if two kingdoms rely on each other for trade, they're less likely to go war.
Exactly. Mutual benefit keeps the peace, but political tension can lead to tariffs, embargoes, even war.
Economics as a weapon.
And LitRPG Reads gives examples of these trade routes like the Silk Highway, all about luxury goods.
Okay, for the wealthy and fashionable.
The Iron Path, essential for weapons and tools.
Keeping everyone armed and productive.
The Spice Trails, bringing exotic flavors from afar.
Ah, the taste of adventure.
The Gem Road, for those who love shiny things.
And the Waterway of Echoes, a vital artery for waterborne trade.
And the Northern Tundra Track, braving harsh conditions for valuable furs.
Each route has its own unique challenges and rewards.
Bandits, harsh weather, political intrigue, it's all part of the game.
And these trade routes are tied to political alliances, right?
Absolutely. Trade agreements can bring peace and prosperity, but break them, and things can get ugly.
So economic diplomacy is crucial.
The article talks about different types of alliances and their effects, like cultural exchange pacts, leading to more trade in art and fancy stuff.
Makes sense. Exposure to new cultures creates new desire.
Economic defense alliances where kingdoms team up to protect trade routes.
Strength in numbers.
Resource-sharing compacts, ensuring access to vital materials.
Essential for survival.
But then you have mercantile rivalries, leading to trade wars and sneaky tactics.
When competition gets fierce.
Embargoes can cripple a kingdom's economy. Tariffs protect local industries, but can also spark retaliation.
It's a delicate balance.
And then there are the changemakers, those who can shift the balance of power.
Who are we talking about?
Well, it could be a leader who understands trade, an arcane discovery that changes resource availability.
Like finding a new way to create magic items.
Exactly. A technological breakthrough, the rise of a powerful new group, even a natural disaster.
Wow, so many things can shake things up.
And as societies evolve, so do their economies and currencies.
Like going from bartering to coins to something even more complex.
Exactly. LitRPG Reads give some great examples like Highlanders bartering livestock, desert dwellers using systems of credit,
Interesting. Different environments, different solutions.
river folk using easily transportable goods as currency, barbarians valuing resources for war,
Makes sense. They're all about practicality.
and then you have gnome technocrats, maybe using energy credits or something.
So it all shows how economics is woven into every part of the world.
History, politics, culture, even magic. It all plays a role.
So to wrap up, building a believable and exciting economy means understanding the basics, picking the right systems, factoring in magic, and making it dynamic.
It should react to events and player choices. It should feel alive.
And don't forget the balance between realism and fun.
We don't want players bogged down in spreadsheets, but we want their choices to matter.
Exactly. The economy should be another layer of the world they can explore and shape.
A huge thanks to LitRPG Reads and Paul Bello for all the inspiration and insights.
Seriously, their work is a goldmine for DMs wanting to add depth to their games.
Couldn't have been a better myself.
Now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on building fantasy economies?
Have you had any crazy experiences with economics in your own games?
Share your stories and thoughts in the comments below.
And one last thought to leave you with. How might those seemingly small economic choices your players make, or even the choices of NPCs, ripple outwards?
Could they change the fate of kingdoms? Rewrite history?
It's something to think about.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Until then, happy gaming.